So what is Aperture Priority Mode? Aperture Priority Mode is a semi-auto setting which allows you to take full control of the aperture and let the camera take care of the rest of the exposure by selecting the shutter speed for you. A lot of photographers use Aperture Priority as it's an easy way to shoot yet still keep creative control over your photography. You can choose how much of your image is in focus and how you want your image to look simply by controlling the aperture. It's convenient, your camera is always ready and you will rarely miss a shot. Now in photography we can find the aperture value simply by looking for the number with an F before it. Now the lower the F number, the larger the aperture and less of your picture will be in focus. Look at this picture taken at f2.8. As you can see, only the first peg is in focus. As we increase the F number, the aperture gets smaller and more of the picture becomes in focus. Have a play around with this on your camera and you'll start to get a feel and understanding of how changing aperture really has an impact on your photos. One major downside to using Aperture Priority Mode is you're still letting the camera set the exposure. Now depending what metering mode you're using and how bright or dark your subject is in the frame, this can sometimes confuse the camera and set the wrong exposure. Now depending on your camera make, this might be called something slightly different. Now if you're on a Canon or a Pentax, this will be simply called AV on the mode dial. AV stands for aperture value. If you're on a Nikon, Sony or Pentax, this will be simply labelled A on the mode dial. So now you have your camera set up, let's look at a few mistakes to avoid when using aperture priority. Now if shooting in low light, remember to increase your ISO. Remember, aperture priority is still a semi-auto mode, so you still can have control over your ISO level. Now increasing the ISO level will help you keep shutter speeds up and reduce camera shake and blurry photos. Another mistake is accidentally dialing in exposure compensation. This can easily happen and I've had countless beginners come to me with this mistake. Don't worry, it's an easy mistake to make and can be corrected in a second. On the camera I'm using, which is a Canon, you can adjust the exposure compensation by turning the main dial on the back of the camera. As you can see, as we move the dial to the right, the light meter level is moving to the right, telling us that we've just added one stop of exposure compensation. Now if we turn the dial to the left, the light meter level moves across to the left, indicating that we have now underexposed by one stop. Depending on what camera make and model you have, it will be slightly different to change exposure compensation. Either check your manual or do a quick Google search to find out how to adjust this on your camera. Try using Aperture Priority Mode as a stepping stone to manual mode. You don't need to shoot in manual all the time, but it will be a huge advantage to you to understand how to set the exposure yourself. This will in turn lead to better and more consistent pictures and that you really express yourself through photography.